The warning alarm screamed through the bridge of the mining ship Prosperity. Captain Minu grabbed his chair as the vessel shook violently. Asteroids filled spinning past them in a deadly dance. "Something big on scanners," shouted from her navigation station. Her fingers flew across the controls trying to stabilize their position. "Really big, Captain. It's not moving." Minu leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. In 15 years of mining the outer rim, he had seen plenty of strange things floating in space. Dead satellites, abandoned stations, even old Earth warships from the colony wars. But this was different. "Put it on screen," he ordered. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge go silent. A massive warship hung in the darkness, surrounded by debris and broken asteroids. It was easily 3 times the size of any human military vessel. The hull was dark gray, covered with strange symbols and patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. Even damaged and dead, the ship looked dangerous. "That's a battlecruiser," said quietly. The first officer stood up, his face pale. "Captain, we need to leave now." Minu knew his first officer was right to be afraid. The Empire controlled a huge section of the galaxy. Their warships were legendary. One of these ships could destroy an entire human fleet, but this one was clearly damaged. Hull breaches covered its surface. No lights showed in the windows. No power signature registered on their scanners. "It's dead," Minu said. "Look at it. Whatever happened here, it happened a long time ago." "Salvage rights," spoke up from the engineering station. The chief engineer had a gleam in her eye that Minu recognized. She was already thinking about what technology might be inside that ship. "Galactic law says salvage rights go to whoever finds it first." Shook his head. "They will never let us keep it. They'll take it back and probably kill us for touching it." "Only if they find out," said with a grin. Minu made his decision quickly. This was the opportunity of a lifetime. Human technology was decades behind the other species in the galaxy. Earth's military had decent ships, but nothing compared to the other great powers. If they could salvage even a fraction of the technology on that battlecruiser, it could change everything. "Prepare a boarding team," Minu ordered. "Plot us a course to match their position. You're with me. Bring your engineering team and every scanner we have." 2 hours later, Minu floated through the massive breach in the battlecruiser's hull. His magnetic boots activated as he crossed into the ship's interior, finding a metal floor beneath him. Emergency lights flickered weakly, barely illuminating the corridor. The air was gone, vented into space long ago. His suit's sensors showed radiation levels and various chemicals, but nothing immediately dangerous. "This is incredible," whispered over the radio. She was scanning the walls with her equipment. "Captain, these power conduits are using quantum field technology. We've only theorized about this. They actually built it." The team moved deeper into the ship. They found bodies, lots of them. The crew lay where they had died, their bodies preserved in the vacuum. They were tall and thin, with 4 arms and elongated heads. Their armor was sleek and elegant, covered in the same strange symbols as the ship's hull. "What killed them?" asked, examining one of the bodies carefully. "No blast marks, no visible wounds," said. "Maybe the life support failed, or radiation poisoning." They pressed on, following the main corridor toward the center of the ship. The battlecruiser was enormous inside. Corridors branched off in every direction. The ceiling stretched high above them, decorated with flowing designs and patterns. Everything spoke of a civilization that valued beauty as much as function. Finally, they reached the reactor chamber. Minu stood at the entrance, staring in awe. A massive sphere floated in the center of the room, held in place by glowing fields of energy. Even with no power, the sphere pulsed with a dim light, like a dying star. "That's the reactor," said, her voice filled with wonder. "A quantum-dimensional core. It taps into other dimensions for power. Captain, if we could understand even a fraction of how this works." "Can we move it?" Minu asked. "Move it? "Captain, we can move the whole ship. Look, the reactor is still active at minimal power. The main systems are offline, but the core functions are intact. If I can reroute power to the engines, we could fly this thing." Grabbed Minyu's arm. "You can't be serious. We're a mining crew. We don't know anything about flying alien warships." "Then we'll learn," Minyu said firmly. He had made his decision. How long would it take to get this ship operational enough to move it? "Give me a week and access to every piece of equipment on the Prosperity," said. "No promises, but I think I can do it." Over the next week, the crew of the Prosperity worked around the clock. They stripped systems from their own ship and installed them on the battlecruiser, and her team mapped out the alien technology, learning how it connected and functioned. They couldn't understand it all, but they understood enough. On the 8th day, made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the ship's computer core, she found the artificial intelligence. It was damaged but still functional, sleeping in the digital darkness. "Captain, this AI controlled every system on the ship," explained, her fingers dancing across her makeshift terminal. "Weapons, shields, navigation, everything. If we can wake it up and get it to cooperate, flying this thing becomes possible." "And if it doesn't cooperate?" asked. "Then we have a very large and very useless piece of metal," admitted. Minyu looked at the crew gathered around him. They were miners and engineers, not soldiers. But they were also humans, and humans had always been good at one thing: adapting to survive. "Wake it up," he ordered. Activated the command sequence. The lights in the computer core brightened. Screens flickered to life, displaying alien text that scrolled too fast to read. Then a voice spoke. It was cold and mechanical, translated through their computer systems. "This unit is designated Command Intelligence 7. State your authorization codes." "We don't have authorization codes," Minyu said honestly. "This ship was abandoned. We found it and claimed salvage rights under galactic law." There was a long pause. Then the AI spoke again, and this time there was something in its voice that might have been surprise. "You are humans. This ship was built for the Empire. You cannot operate systems designed for superior species." "Watch us," Minyu said with a smile. They had the ship. Now they just had to figure out what to do with it, and how to keep it when the Empire came looking for their missing battle cruiser. Haven Station floated in the shadow of a massive asteroid, hidden from the normal shipping lanes. It was one of humanity's secret outposts, a place where miners and smugglers came to avoid questions. Captain Minyu had brought the battlecruiser here, towed slowly by 3 mining ships working together. It had taken 2 weeks, and every day Minyu expected to see enemy ships appearing to take it back. But they had made it. Now the real work began. The station's master, an old woman named, walked through the battle cruiser's corridors with wide eyes. She had spent 40 years studying alien technology and spoke 12 different alien languages. She had never seen anything like this ship. "This is First Dynasty work," she said, running her hand along the wall. The metal felt warm under her fingers. "They built this at least 200 years ago when they were at the peak of their power. Captain, do you understand what you have here?" "A very big problem," Minyu suggested. Laughed. "Yes, but also an opportunity. The will want this ship back. They'll send their fleet to get it. You have maybe 6 months before they trace it here." "Then we have 6 months to make this ship operational," Minyu said. Had already assembled a team. Engineers from a dozen human ships had volunteered when they heard about the project. They called it the Phoenix Initiative because they were bringing a dead ship back to life. The team worked in shifts, 20 hours a day, taking apart alien systems and trying to understand them. The alien AI, which they had started calling 7, was not helpful at first. It answered their questions with contempt, explaining that humans were too primitive to understand technology. Everything was too advanced, too elegant, too perfect for human minds to grasp. This ship was designed for operators with 4 arms and enhanced neural processing, Seven said coldly. Your reaction time is too slow. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is elementary. You cannot fly this ship. Slammed her hand on the console, making the AI's interface flicker. Then help us adapt it. You can sit in your computer core and rust away, or you can work with us. Your choice. There was a long silence. Then Seven spoke again, and for the first time there was something other than contempt in its voice. Curiosity, perhaps. You would modify systems, that would be inappropriate. Inappropriate is our specialty, said with a grin. Slowly, Seven began to help. It showed them how the power systems worked, how energy flowed through the quantum core and into the ship's various systems. It explained the weapons, though it insisted humans could never use them properly. The main energy cannons required massive power draws. The shield generators needed constant adjustment and calibration. Everything was designed for perfection, for operators who never made mistakes. Then we won't use them, decided. Captain, we need to strip out half of these alien systems and replace them with human technology. Thought she was crazy. Replace technology with our equipment. That's like replacing a sports car engine with a tractor motor. Maybe, said, but tractors are reliable. Tractors don't need perfect conditions to work. And most importantly, we know how to fix tractors. The reconstruction began. They removed the elegant alien weapons and installed human rail guns, missile pods, and point defense systems. The weapons were crude compared to what had been there before, but they were proven and reliable. More importantly, human crews knew how to maintain them and repair them in combat. They couldn't replace the shields. That technology was too advanced, but they could add armor. Thick plates of ablative armor were welded onto the hull, covering the weak points. It made the ship look ugly and asymmetrical, but it would absorb damage that shields might miss. A former Earth Marine commander named took charge of training the combat crew. He walked through the ship, mentally converting the elegant alien spaces into practical military positions. Gun crews, damage control teams, boarding parties. He would need at least 300 people to crew this ship properly. The had used 5,000. We'll have to work smarter, said. Automation, redundant systems, and crew members who can do multiple jobs. It's not ideal, but we can make it work. The biggest change came from a young weapons specialist named. He was hot-headed and aggressive, always pushing for more firepower. When he saw the massive hangar bays inside the ship, empty and unused, he had an idea. The never-used fighter craft, he said excitedly. They thought it was beneath them, but we could fit 50 fighters in these bays, maybe more. Give me a squadron of fighters and I can defend this ship from anything. Loved the idea. They modified the hangar bays to accommodate human fighter designs. Magnetic launch rails were installed to throw the small craft into space at high speed. Recovery systems were added to catch them on the way back in. It was crude and dangerous, but it would work. The quantum reactor was the biggest challenge. Spent weeks studying it, trying to understand how it pulled energy from other dimensions. Seven insisted that humans should never modify it. The reactor was perfectly calibrated. Any changes could cause catastrophic failure. What if we pushed it harder? Asked. What if we ran it at higher output? Impossible, Seven said flatly. The reactor operates at optimal efficiency. Increasing power output would destabilize the quantum fields. The ship would be destroyed. But what if it didn't? Pressed. What if we added additional regulators, redundant safety systems? You would be operating outside safe parameters. It would be reckless and dangerous. Perfect, said. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Against Seven's protests, modified the reactor. She added human-built regulators and control systems around the alien core. She couldn't make it safer, but she could make it more controllable. And most importantly, she could push it to much higher power output for short periods. After 3 months of work, they were ready for the first test flight. The entire crew gathered on the bridge. Minyu sat in the captain's chair, feeling small in the space designed for much taller beings. Took the navigator position, her hands hovering over controls she was still learning to use. 7, give me a status report, Minyu ordered. All systems are functioning, the AI said, though I must note that this ship bears little resemblance to its original configuration. You have made it crude and inelegant. But will it fly? Minyu asked. Theoretically. Good enough, take us out slowly. The ship moved forward, pulling away from Haven Station. At first, everything seemed fine. The engines responded smoothly. The reactor provided steady power. Then alarms started screaming. Hull stress fractures appeared on multiple decks. The reactor temperature spiked. Half the bridge systems went offline. Emergency shutdown, shouted. We're tearing ourselves apart. They barely made it back to the station. The test was a disaster. Systems that had worked perfectly on the ground failed under flight conditions. The human modifications couldn't handle the stress. The crew spent the next week repairing damage and feeling defeated. The AI was right, said quietly. We can't fly this ship, we're not advanced enough. Minyu looked at. The engineer sat at her station, staring at data from the failed test. Then she smiled, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had just figured out how to break the rules. We've been trying to fly this ship the way they would fly it, said. Perfectly, efficiently, following all the safety protocols. That's generally how ships are supposed to work, said. Not human ships, replied. 7, I need you to disable all safety protocols on the reactor and engines. That would be catastrophically dangerous, 7 protested. Do it anyway. The second test flight happened 3 days later. This time, didn't try to keep everything perfect. She let the reactor run hot. She pushed the engines past their rated capacity. She ignored warnings and alarms, keeping the ship flying through sheer determination and constant adjustment. It worked. The ship flew, not elegantly, not perfectly, but it flew, and it flew fast and powerful. 7's voice came over the speakers, and for the first time it sounded uncertain. This should not work. You are operating systems far outside design parameters. This is reckless. This is dangerous. This is how humans do things, Minyu finished. Welcome to the Indomitable. They had their warship. Now they just needed to learn how to fight with it. The fleet appeared at the edge of the system without warning. 3 heavy cruisers and a carrier group, their ships gleaming and perfect against the darkness of space. On Haven Station, alarms blared as sensors picked up the massive energy signatures. Minyu stared at the tactical display on the bridge of the Indomitable. His ship was docked with the station, still being loaded with supplies and ammunition. They had known this day would come, but he had hoped for more time, more training, more preparation. How long before they're in weapons range? He asked. 4 hours, replied, her voice tense. They're not rushing, they know we can't run. A communication request came through. Minyu accepted it, and a face appeared on the screen. The alien was tall and elegant, with 4 arms folded across its armored chest. Its eyes were cold and filled with contempt. I am commander of the Empire, the alien said. Its voice was translated by the computer, sounding smooth and cultured. You have stolen property belonging to the Empire. Surrender the battlecruiser Eternal Glory immediately, and your deaths will be quick. Minyu felt his crew watching him, waiting for his response. He thought about what would happen if they surrendered. They would kill them all. They would take the Indomitable and dismantle it, erasing all the work they had done. Humanity would lose its chance to have a ship like this. The ship was abandoned, Minyu said calmly. Under galactic law, salvage rights are clear. This ship is ours now. We've renamed it the Indomitable, and we're not giving it back. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in its eyes. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. You are humans, barely worthy of notice. You think you can stand against the Empire, against this fleet. I guess we'll find out, Minyu said, and cut the communication. Stared at him. Captain, we can't fight them. 3 cruisers and a carrier. They'll destroy us. Probably, Minyu agreed. But we're going to try anyway. Get everyone to battle stations. I need everything you can give me. Prepare your combat teams. If they board us, make them pay for every corridor. The communications officer spoke up. Captain, I've been broadcasting what's happening here on open channels. The whole galaxy is watching. The Galactic Council, Earth's government, everyone. Good, Minyu said. Let them watch. Maybe someone will care that they are about to murder a mining crew for following salvage laws. But no help came. The Galactic Council sent a message saying they would not interfere in internal affairs. Earth's government officially disavowed the Indomitable, saying the ship and crew were acting without authorization. They were alone. Haven Station began evacuating. Civilian ships scattered in every direction, fleeing before the fleet arrived. Minyu watched them go and felt a cold determination settle in his chest. The station had given them shelter. The civilians had supported them. He wouldn't let them destroy everything. Disconnect from the station, Minyu ordered. Take us into the asteroid field. We're going to use every advantage we can get. The Indomitable pulled away from Haven Station slowly. The ship was massive and powerful, but it was also crude and jury-rigged. Against warships designed for perfection, it would be like a street brawler facing trained soldiers. 7, I need your help, Minyu said to the AI. I know you don't think much of us, but this is your chance to survive. Help us win this fight. There was a pause, then 7 spoke, its voice thoughtful. I was programmed to serve the Empire, but the Empire abandoned me. They left me to die on that ship. Perhaps it is time for new programming. What do you need, Captain? Tell me their weaknesses. How do ships fight? What are their tactics? Doctrine emphasizes precision and efficiency, 7 explained. They will attempt to encircle you, disable your weapons and engines, then board and capture the ship. They want the eternal glory back intact. That gives you an advantage. They want the ship intact, Minyu repeated, so they won't use their heaviest weapons right away. Correct, they will underestimate you. Use that. The Indomitable moved deeper into the asteroid field, piloted the massive ship between floating rocks with skill that made Minyu's heart race. Any mistake would smash them into an asteroid, but never hesitated. She flew like she was born to it. The fleet followed, moving in perfect formation. They were cautious, professional, doing everything by proper tactical doctrine. Commander clearly expected this to be quick and easy. All fighters launch, Minyu ordered. His voice came over the radio, excited and eager. Roger that, Captain. Let's show these aliens how humans fight. 50 human fighters burst from the Indomitable's hangar bays, scattering in all directions like angry wasps. The fleet paused, surprised. Their warships didn't carry fighters. They had never developed that kind of warfare. The fighters were small, fast, and hard to target. All weapons open fire, Minyu said calmly. The Indomitable did something no proper warship would ever do. It charged forward through an asteroid at full speed. The massive rock shattered against the reinforced hull, breaking into thousands of pieces. The fragments spread out in a cloud, creating instant cover. The ships tried to track the Indomitable through the debris, but their sensors were confused. Their precise targeting systems couldn't lock on properly. When they fired, their energy beams went wide, hitting asteroids instead of the human ship. The Indomitable emerged from the debris cloud with all weapons firing. Rail guns sent solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. Missile pods launched hundreds of warheads in a single salvo. The crude human weapons didn't have the elegance of energy beams, but they didn't need it. Quantity had a quality all its own. One cruiser took the full force of the first attack. Its shields held, but barely. Alarms must have been screaming on its bridge. Commander's voice came over the communication channel, angry now instead of contemptuous. "You dare attack us, destroy them, I don't care about the ship anymore." The fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy beams sliced through space, hitting the Indomitable shields and armor. Explosions blossomed across the human ship's hull. Compartments vented atmosphere. People died. But the Indomitable didn't stop. Pushed the reactor past every safety limit, feeding power to weapons and engines. Damage control teams ran through burning corridors, sealing breaches and rerouting systems. The ship took terrible damage, but it kept fighting. Fighters swarmed around the carrier, firing missiles and guns at close range. The carrier tried to defend itself, but it wasn't designed to fight small, fast targets. 2 fighters were destroyed, then 3 more, but the rest kept attacking. One lucky missile penetrated the carrier's shields and struck its hangar bay. Secondary explosions rippled through the alien ship. "Ram them," Minyu said suddenly. Stared at him. "What?" "You heard me, full speed. Ram that lead cruiser." The Indomitable surged forward. The cruiser tried to evade, but it was too slow. The human ship, covered in mismatched armor and from battle, slammed into the elegant alien vessel. The collision was catastrophic. Both ships spun away from each other, their hulls torn open. But the Indomitable had been built tougher. Crude, ugly armor plates had absorbed the impact. The human ship was hurt but still functional. The cruiser was crippled, leaking atmosphere and power. Seven's voice came over the speakers, and it sounded almost excited. That was completely insane. No proper warship would ever attempt such a maneuver. "Good thing we're not proper," Minyu said through gritted teeth. The battle raged for 3 more hours. The Indomitable fought like a cornered animal, using every dirty trick and desperate tactic the crew could think of. They used asteroids for cover. They fired missiles on ballistic trajectories that curved around debris. They even launched Marines in boarding pods toward the damaged cruiser, trying to capture it from the inside. By the end, 2 cruisers were destroyed. The carrier was crippled and retreating, but the Indomitable was dying. Half its systems were offline. The reactor was failing. Fires burned on multiple decks. Out of 300 crew, only 200 were still alive. "We need to retreat," said Captain. "If we stay, they'll finish us." Minyu knew he was right. They had won, but barely. And Commander's remaining ships were regrouping, preparing for another attack. "Can you get us to hyperspace?" Minyu asked. "Maybe," the navigator said. "The engines are damaged, but I think I can manage one jump. It won't be pretty." "Nothing we do is pretty, do it." The Indomitable turned and ran, limping toward the edge of the system. Behind them, the fleet fired one last salvo, but the human ship was already gone, vanishing into hyperspace with trails of atmosphere and debris marking its path. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander watched them escape. His perfect face was calm, but his hands trembled with rage. He had brought a fleet to destroy one human ship. Instead, that ship had destroyed most of his fleet and humiliated him. "Track them," ordered. "Find where they go, and send a message to the Empire. Tell them humans are not a nuisance anymore. They are a threat." 2 years passed, and the Indomitable became something different. It was no longer just a salvaged battlecruiser with human modifications. It had evolved into something unique, something that made other species nervous when they saw it. The ship never stayed in one place for long. Minyu kept it moving through the frontier regions, hitting targets and disappearing before anyone could respond. They attacked pirate bases, freed slave convoys, and raided alien supply lines. Each victory brought more resources and more technology to add to the ship. The crew had grown. Word spread through human space about the ship that had stood against the Empire and survived. Volunteers came from every human colony. Former military pilots, engineers looking for adventure, Marines who wanted to fight. By the end of the 2nd year, The Indomitable carried 800 souls. Walked through the ship's corridors, marveling at what it had become. The elegant architecture was barely visible anymore under layers of human additions. Armor plates salvaged from a dozen different species covered the hull. Weapons pods jutted out at odd angles, giving the ship a bristling, aggressive look. Shield generators from 3 different civilizations worked together in a way that made no sense but somehow functioned. "It's beautiful," she said to Seven. The AI had changed too over the years. It had stopped calling humans primitive. Now it offered suggestions, pointed out improvements, and sometimes even made jokes. Working with humans had taught it things that had never considered. "Beautiful is not the word I would use," Seven replied. "The ship is asymmetrical, inefficient, and violates approximately 700 design principles, but it works. Somehow it works." A new crew member named had joined them 6 months ago. She was a former smuggler who knew every black market in the frontier. She had connections everywhere, and she used them to get equipment and supplies that should have been impossible to acquire. "I've got something special," said, walking onto the bridge where Minu stood studying star charts. "Stealth coating. The real military-grade stuff, not the commercial version. Enough to coat the whole ship." Minu raised an eyebrow. "How did you get that? The guard that technology with their lives." "Let's just say they had some ships they weren't using anymore," said with a grin. "Pirates took them. We took them from the pirates. It's all very legal." The stealth coating took 3 weeks to apply. When they were done, the Indomitable could disappear from sensors for short periods. It wouldn't fool a dedicated search, but it gave them an edge in combat. The tactical officer used the new capabilities to develop ambush strategies. He was a genius at psychological warfare, understanding how different species thought and fought. He knew the valued honor and direct confrontation. He knew they were aggressive but predictable. He knew they were cautious and defensive. "We can't fight fair," explained to the crew during a briefing. "We're one ship against entire fleets. We have to make them afraid, make them hesitate, make them second-guess every decision." The Indomitable hit a slaver convoy in the outer sectors. There were large, powerful aliens who captured weaker species and sold them as slaves. They thought they were safe in their own territory, protected by their fleet. The Indomitable appeared out of nowhere, stealth coating hiding it until the last moment. It tore through the convoy like a shark through fish. The escorts fired back, but human fighters swarmed them, missiles and rail gun fire overwhelming their defenses. Within an hour, the slavers were destroyed and 3,000 captives were freed. Among the freed slaves were humans, families from a colony that had been raided. When they saw the Indomitable, when they learned that humans had built this ship and used it to save them, they wept with gratitude. "This is why we do this," Minu told his crew. "Not for glory, not for revenge, but because someone has to stand up for those who can't protect themselves." The Galactic Council declared the Indomitable a pirate vessel. They put bounties on Minu and his senior officers. 5 different alien species hired mercenaries to hunt them down. But the Indomitable was too fast, too unpredictable, too well-defended. Every hunter that came after them ended up running away damaged or destroyed. The most famous victory came at Nest. It was a pirate base built into a massive asteroid, protected by defense platforms and a permanent fleet. 3 different alien governments had tried to eliminate it and failed. The pirates were too well armed, too well hidden. Proposed a crazy plan. "We can't attack it head-on, but what if we mine the approaches with every explosive we have? Then we lure their fleet out into our trap." It worked perfectly. The pirates saw the Indomitable approaching and sent their entire fleet to destroy it. The human ship turned and ran, leading them through the mined zone. Explosions tore through the pirate fleet, destroying half their ships in minutes. The Indomitable turned back and finished the rest. Then led a boarding assault on the asteroid base itself. His marines fought through the corridors, facing desperate pirates from a dozen different species. It was brutal, close-quarters combat, but the Marines had trained for this, and they were fighting for something the pirates weren't. They believed in what they were doing. When it was over, Nest was captured. They freed over 5,000 slaves and captured enough weapons and equipment to supply a small army. The Indomitable left the base as a burning wreck, a message to every pirate in the sector. Nowhere was safe. But success brought attention they didn't want. A scout pilot who flew reconnaissance missions in a stealth ship brought back disturbing news. He had been monitoring military channels, and what he discovered made everyone on the bridge go silent. "They're building a fleet," reported. "A massive fleet bigger than anything they've assembled in decades, and the target is us. Well, not just us, all human colonies in the frontier." Minyu studied the intelligence reports. The numbers were staggering: 20 battlecruisers, 40 destroyers, 2 dreadnoughts, enough firepower to wipe out human presence in the frontier completely. "Why now?" asked. "We've been fighting them for 2 years. Why suddenly escalate like this?" "Because we've embarrassed them," answered. "We've shown the galaxy that humans can stand against we've made them look weak. They can't allow that." Seven's voice came through the speakers, thoughtful and concerned. "The Empire does not forgive insults to their honor. They will come with overwhelming force. They will destroy everything." Minyu sent messages to Earth's government, begging for help. He sent evidence of the fleet building, proof that they were planning to attack human colonies. The response was cold and bureaucratic. Earth didn't want war with the Empire. They suggested the frontier colonies evacuate if they felt threatened. "They're abandoning us," said bitterly. "Earth won't help." "Then we help ourselves," Minyu replied. "Send messages to every human colony in the frontier. Tell them to evacuate. We'll buy them time." The crew stared at him. "Captain," said slowly, "you're talking about fighting that fleet. We can't win. Even with everything we've done, everything we've built, we can't win against those numbers." "I know," Minyu said, "but we can delay them. We can make them pay such a price that they hesitate. We can give our people time to escape." Over the next month, they prepared. Every weapon was checked and rechecked. Every system was pushed to maximum efficiency. They gathered every resource they could, calling in favors from smugglers and allies across the frontier. Brought them antimatter bombs, highly illegal and incredibly dangerous. Trained new fighter pilots, trying to get them ready for the battle to come. Prepared his Marines for what might be their last fight. Worked on the reactor day and night, developing something she called the protocol. It was a way to disable every safety system on the ship, pushing the quantum core to power levels that should be impossible. It would give them incredible firepower and speed, but only for a short time. After that, the ship would tear itself apart. "It's a suicide button," said when he saw the plans. "It's a choice," corrected. "If we're going to die anyway, we might as well take as many of them with us as possible." Seven was unusually quiet during the preparations. Finally, the AI spoke to Minyu privately on the bridge late one night. "I have served on this ship for over 200 years, Seven said. "I was programmed to value efficiency, perfection, and proper procedure. You humans violate all of those principles. You are reckless, crude, and illogical." "Is there a point to this?" Minyu asked. "Yes. The point is that I have never been more alive than I have been these past 2 years. The created me to be a tool. You have made me a member of your crew. I wanted to thank you for that before the end." Minyu smiled sadly. "We're not done yet, Seven. We might surprise everyone." "You always do," the AI replied. The fleet was coming. The Indomitable would meet them at a place called Threshold Point, the main hyperspace corridor into the frontier. One ship against an armada. It was impossible, ridiculous, and hopeless. It was exactly the kind of fight humans were good at. The armada arrived at Threshold Point in perfect formation. 20 battlecruisers moved in precise patterns, surrounded by 40 destroyers that formed protective screens. At the center of the fleet floated 2 dreadnoughts, massive ships that dwarfed everything else. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display. The human ship was already there, waiting. Just one ship. The Indomitable hung in space near the narrow hyperspace corridor, looking small and insignificant compared to the might of the Empire. "They're fools," one of his officers said. "One ship against our entire fleet. This will be over in minutes." But remembered his first encounter with that ship 2 years ago. He remembered losing most of his fleet to these humans who fought with no regard for proper tactics. He would not underestimate them again. "Proceed carefully," ordered. "Full sensor sweeps. Watch for traps." On the bridge of the Indomitable, Minyu watched the fleet approach. His crew stood at their stations, calm and ready. They had said their goodbyes. They had sent their messages to loved ones. Now there was only the fight. "How long until the colony ships are clear?" Minyu asked. 3 hours, replied. "The last evacuation transports are jumping out now. If we can hold them for 3 hours, everyone gets away." 3 hours. It seemed impossible, but humans had done impossible things before. "Are we broadcasting?" Minyu asked. The communications officer nodded. "Every channel, every frequency. Half the galaxy is watching this right now." "Good, let them watch. Let them see what happened when you backed humans into a corner." 7. Activate the mines, Minyu said calmly. All around the fleet, hidden among the asteroids and debris, weapons came to life. Nuclear mines, antimatter bombs, experimental weapons salvaged from a dozen different species. Over the past month, and his stealth ships had seeded the entire corridor with explosives. The fleet triggered the first mine when a destroyer moved too close to an asteroid. The explosion was massive, catching 3 ships in the blast. Alarms screamed across the fleet as more mines detonated. Ships scattered, their perfect formation breaking apart. "Now," Minyu shouted. The Indomitable surged forward, all weapons firing. Rail guns sent streams of metal into the confused fleet. Missiles arced through space, seeking targets. The human ship dove into the enemy formation like a knife, too close for their big ships to fire safely. Launched his fighters. 75 small craft burst from the hangar bays, immediately scattering to attack different targets. They had practiced this maneuver 100 times. Each pilot knew exactly what to do. The fleet tried to respond, but they were designed for long-range combat and precise tactics. The humans brought chaos. Fighters swarmed between their big ships, firing missiles at point-blank range. The Indomitable rammed through their formation, using its crude armor to smash aside smaller vessels. "Boarding pods away," reported. His voice was steady despite the chaos. His Marines were launching in small pods, aiming for damaged ships. If they could capture enemy vessels and turn their weapons against the fleet, they might actually have a chance. Admiral watched his fleet falling into disorder. The humans were fighting like animals, using every dirty trick and desperate tactic they could think of. It was undignified, it was improper, and it was working. "All ships focus fire on that human battlecruiser," ordered. "I don't care about anything else. Destroy the Indomitable." The fleet finally coordinated their response. Every weapon turned toward the human ship. Energy beams lanced through space, hitting shields and armor. Missiles by the hundreds tracked the Indomitable, trying to overwhelm its defenses. "Shields failing," shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Reroute power from life support," ordered from engineering. "Feed everything to weapons and shields." The crew didn't hesitate. They knew what that meant. Some sections of the ship would lose air and heat. People would die, but if they didn't keep fighting, everyone would die anyway. Watched the tactical display, analyzing the fleet's movements. "Captain, they're converging on us. If we stay here, we're dead in 10 minutes. "Then we move," Minyu said. Take us through their formation. I need more speed." "I can give you more speed," replied, "but the engines will burn out." "Do it." The Indomitable accelerated to speeds it was never designed to reach. The hull groaned under the stress. Systems overloaded and failed, but the ship shot through the fleet like a bullet, leaving explosions and chaos in its wake. 2 hours passed. The Indomitable was dying. Half its weapons were destroyed. Fires burned on multiple decks. The crew had taken terrible casualties. Out of 800, only 300 were still alive and fighting. But they had destroyed 6 battlecruisers. Marines had captured 2 more and turned their weapons against the fleet. 20 destroyers were gone. And most importantly, the fleet was stuck here, fighting one human ship, while the colony transports escaped. "One more hour," said, her voice strained. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead, but she never left her station. "Just one more hour." Admiral stared at the tactical display in disbelief. A third of his fleet was gone. His perfect armada, the pride of the Empire, was being torn apart by one ship, by humans who should have been crushed in the first minutes of battle. "Bring forward the dreadnoughts," ordered. "End this now." The 2 massive dreadnoughts moved forward, their weapons charging. Each one carried planet-killing firepower. Against them, the Indomitable was a gnat. On the human ship's bridge, alarms screamed as sensors detected the massive energy buildup. Minyu looked at his remaining crew. They were tired, hurt, and covered in blood and soot, but they weren't giving up. Minyu said quietly, "Activate protocol." There was a moment of silence. Everyone knew what that meant. The ship had maybe 30 minutes left after that protocol activated, but it would be 30 minutes of incredible power. "Activating now," said. Every safety system on the Indomitable shut down. The quantum reactor went from normal operation to pulling energy from other dimensions at a rate that should have destroyed it instantly. Power flooded through the ship, more than it was ever designed to handle. The ship's hull began to glow. Weapons that had been offline came back to life. The shields, which had failed minutes ago, regenerated stronger than ever. The engines burned with impossible fury. Seven's voice came over the speakers. "This is insane. The ship will tear itself apart." "Then we've got 30 minutes, Minyu replied. "Let's make them count." The Indomitable charged at the dreadnoughts. It was suicide. Everyone knew it. But the human ship didn't hesitate. It fired every weapon, launched every remaining fighter, and crashed into the fleet with all the fury of humanity's refusal to surrender. His voice came over the radio, calm despite the chaos. "It's been an honor, Captain. All fighters one last strike. Make it count." The fighters dove at the dreadnoughts in a final, desperate attack. Most were destroyed before they got close, but a few made it through, their missiles striking weak points in the massive ship's armor. Led his last boarding team onto a captured battlecruiser. They aimed it at one of the dreadnoughts and set it to ram speed. Then they evacuated in pods, leaving the ship to fly on automatic. The battlecruiser, now a massive missile, slammed into the dreadnought's side. The explosion was catastrophic. The dreadnought's shields failed. Its hull cracked. Secondary explosions rippled through its interior. "One down," said amazed. "We actually killed a dreadnought." The remaining dreadnought fired its main weapon. The energy beam was wide enough to swallow a city. It hit the Indomitable directly, overwhelming shields and armor. The beam cut through the ship, destroying the aft section completely. Minyu felt the deck shift under his feet. Gravity failed. Emergency lights flickered. They were dying, but not yet, not quite yet. "Ram them," Minyu ordered. "Sir?" asked. "You heard me, full speed. Ram that dreadnought." The Indomitable, broken and burning, accelerated one last time. The dreadnought tried to evade, but it was too slow. The human ship struck it like a hammer, driving deep into its hull. Both ships exploded. The blast lit up the sector like a small sun. Debris scattered in every direction. The shockwave damaged ships thousands of kilometers away. Admiral watched from his flagship as both dreadnoughts were destroyed. His fleet, what remained of it, floated in disorder. Over half his ships were gone. The humans had done the impossible. One ship had held against an armada. "Retreat," said quietly. "Signal all ships we're leaving." The fleet turned and jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage and their dead. In the debris field, a small escape pod tumbled through space. Inside were 73 humans who had made it off the Indomitable before it died. Among them were, but not Minyu. The captain had stayed on the bridge until the end, guiding his ship into that final strike. Rescue ships arrived 3 hours later. First were civilian transports from the colonies, coming back to look for survivors. Then, finally, Earth's military fleet arrived. Ships from humanity's home world, coming too late to help, but in time to see what had been accomplished. The commander of Earth's fleet stared at the debris field in silence. One human ship had stopped an invasion. One crew had saved the frontier colonies. The sacrifice was almost incomprehensible. The wreckage of the Indomitable was recovered over the following weeks. Deep in the ruins, they found Seven's core. The AI was badly damaged but still functional. Its final log entry was transmitted to every human world. "I was built to serve the greatest warship of the Empire. I ended my existence serving the greatest warship in the galaxy. The Indomitable, crewed by humans who fought against impossible odds and won. They should not have survived. They should not have won. But they did, because they refused to give up, because they fought for something greater than themselves. They are monsters, beautiful, terrible monsters. The galaxy will never forget them." Earth's government authorized the construction of a new class of warship, designed using everything learned from the Indomitable. They called them Minyu-class battlecruisers. Crude, powerful, and fearless. Just like the crew that had shown the galaxy what humanity could do. The frontier colonies erected a monument at Threshold Point. A simple stone marker floating in space, with 800 names carved into it. The crew of the Indomitable, heroes who gave everything so others could live. And in space stations and ships across human space, a new tradition began. At the start of every voyage, crews would raise a glass and speak a simple toast. "To the Indomitable, to Captain Minyu and his crew, may we face our battles with their courage." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity could be pushed, they could be threatened, but they would never surrender. They would adapt, they would fight, and they would survive, because that's what humans did. They were monsters, and the galaxy would never forget.